Hey guys, how you going? My name's Leki.
And I'm Aarvi.
And this is season 2 of our podcast. And this podcast actually has a name, and that's the purpose of our podcast today. We spent the Christmas period, the New Year period, planning about what season 2 would look like. Aarvi and I were consistent with publishing pretty much every week on the in-house sort of chat, and some ideas, some thoughts, some reports on how it is day to day in the clinic. So we're pretty excited to present to you what season 2 and the rest of our podcasting experience will look like. And I don't want to give too much. We don't want to give too much away, but we just want to set up a bit of a structure on what we're planning and what we intend on pulling the trigger on.
Yep. So Happy New Year, everyone. So I hope everyone smashes their goals for 2020. We got plenty of goals ourselves, and one of our mini goals was to get a name for the podcast. And I think our name we got was the Positive Experience. So that's our name, and that's what we're going with. It's quite broad. It just has a good name to it and has a good, say to it, I suppose. And we can look back at it. And every time, the main thing we aim for in life is to have a positive experience. And so why not? So that's our name. And then, so to go into more about detail, a little bit more into detail what we're going to be doing this year and what it's going to be based. We're going to have 3 segments, which are written on the board. And then, so what's the first one we got going, Leki?
So with these segments, we've got them into 3 basic topics or segments. And the first one is the Hard Slog. And the Hard Slog, we're going to be raising the profile of lots of local businesses in around the footprint of where we're currently working in, which is the outer west of Melbourne. It may be a lot of feel-good stories. It may be a lot of hardships, and when we do share with you what the positive experience is about, we can give you a little snippet on what the actual spiel will be at the start of a podcast. We all have our favorite podcast. There's usually a little introductory jingle, and then there's a short sort of sentence, a paragraph explaining what the podcast is about. And so before we sort of talk about the segments, maybe it's worthwhile talking about what the actual positive experience is about, because then it will shed more light into these segments that Aarvi's introduced. So how about we start with that?
All right, so welcome to the Positive Experience will be the first line. And then, so what it's going to be based on, it's pretty much a podcast where we look at the good, the bad, and the ugly in living your best life. So the good is pretty much what you have. The bad is what you want, and ugly is what you're working towards. And in the end, you can only learn from those experiences, and you get to choose whether it's positive or a negative one. So, and like we say, always choose the positive one, and here we go. So do you want to talk a bit more into more about
what
detail?
That means?
Yeah.
So we should have filmed ourselves actually going the research in how we arrived to our actual name of the podcast, the Positive Experience. So Aarvi and I were sitting in here yesterday actually, and we Googled a few things. We threw some ideas up on the whiteboard here, and then it came down to 2. The first one was Think Positive Radio, and the second one was the Positive Experience. And this was after half an hour of mucking around, looking at a few different things, what's trademarked, who has a podcast already. And it came down to those 2. Then, I was leaning one way and Aarvi was leaning the other. And what we did, we picked up the phone and we asked a few people nearest to us on what they liked. And it was overwhelmingly the Positive Experience. It's also a little asterisk there, a little tip of the hat to Joe Rogan Experience. Obviously, he's a big, massive influencer. And we're borrowing some of those ideas, but the Positive Experience is identifying the stories that people have, because those stories, they usually have, a good punchline, they have a good lesson in them, but it comes from a lot of hardships. And so in keeping that sort of macro view, you can always look back in the story and you can sort of take from it a negative idea about it, or you can take those lessons which may have had a bad experience, but in the end, it's taught you a lesson and you're going to move forward and look at that as a positive experience. So when we're looking at the good is what you currently have. So maybe you've got a great job, got a good family, got a good business, and the bad is something that you don't have but you really want it. So when you really want something bad, or that's sort of what we're going to look to discuss with our guests. And then the ugly is things that may not be so pretty. Like you might have the physique because you're training so hard, but people don't see, you're getting up early and you're prepping your meals. Or, you might look like you have great skin and all that, but people don't see that you're, supplementing or subscribing to a certain health plan, okay? You might see some great photos online, but it comes from hard grafting and a lot of ugly work. So that's the overall metaphor behind the good, the bad, and the ugly. And for each of our guests that we'll look to bring on, which we'll talk about in a moment, they'll have their own stories, which I'm sure you may resonate with you, and you can draw some good lessons from their findings. So, yeah, sorry, that's basically what the Positive Experience podcast is about. And now we can dive into those segments. So let's go into the Hard Slog, Aarvi, and maybe chat a bit more about what we're thinking about the Hard Slog and what we're looking to shed the light on.
All right, so Hard Slog, as Leki mentioned earlier, it's about local businesses. So pretty much we're shining the light on locals running small businesses. So just showing their good, their bad, and the ugly pretty much, because it's not easy trying to run a small business. It takes a lot of effort. It could be either family owned, could be like a franchise, whatever. It's just, and especially in living in the West, because we're starting local first. It's a growing area. People are still moving in. People are still trying to settle in. So it's a big risk trying to open a new business that no one really knows about in a new area. So it could be like a hit and miss. So we're going to be looking at people like them, and also looking at new Australians, like immigrants and people that are living it hard to try and provide for their family and all those and they're pretty much working long hours. So a lot of people that are listening probably could resonate to that, and it takes a toll. And then we're going to look at those guys, and we're going to have a look at just volunteers. So especially since unfortunately what's going on in Australia with the bushfires, a lot going on there. So it's good that everyone's raising awareness. Australians banding together to make a big donation. Me and Leki have made some donations as well, and then we're going to keep trying pushing towards making donations and helping out as much as possible. So that's that. So that's pretty much the Hard Slog. So looking at small local businesses, and we just want to shine the light on everyone that's doing the best and their positive experience pretty much.
That's it.
And that's it.
So we've got like the overarching program is called the Positive Experience, and one little segment there is the Hard Slog. And the Hard Slog is like Aussie slang for doing it tough. You're working really hard at it, and if you say, it's a hard slog today, then people generally know what you mean. So when we have a particular guest and the segment is the Hard Slog, it'd be on, those sorts of people that Aarvi's just described. Cool, okay. The next segment is called H.E.A.D. This is something it came to Aarvi while he was going to sleep, so
Last night.
last night even. So we haven't named something else, but we think H.E.A.D sounds awesome. Now, it's a bit of a play on words, so what's H.E.A.D?
It's pretty much Health Experts and Disruptors.
Perfect.
So pretty much an acronym, and this is going to be looking in more so the health side of things. So like the whole spectrum of health. So we're not just going to go physio based. It's so it could be fitness, diet, other allied health, government support like NDIS services, GPs, specialists, you name them, any kind of health expert. We're not going to just cut ties with anyone. So and then we're going to have a look at disruptors as well. So people that are growing and taking risks, I suppose, in the health business, which can be a hit or miss, but it's a risk you're taking, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's really, really exciting. Like if you think of Elon Musk, a guy who disrupted the way we think about cars. Okay, so it's a long established business. We understand that these things guzzle up petrol, and there's other mechanics around that. And then this guy just had this idea, which sounds so simple. What about electric cars? That's a disruptor. If you're looking at other people, Steve Jobs, he thought about, what was the saying? 1,000 songs in your pocket for the iPod, the first Apple product. That's a massive disruptor. At that time, I was mucking around with CD Walkmans and, MP3 players, then out comes this iPod. So in health, there's going to be some people that we'd like to touch base with, and as we do a great work and we interview people, we'd like to introduce these disruptors to you, our listeners, our audience, so that way, with health, it's a spectrum, so across that spectrum, you may sit in a certain part of your own personal view on health, which is awesome, but I think it's also great to have all these different opinions and these different perspectives, so then we can grow together, basically. So H.E.A.D is a segment on health, experts and disruptors. Really exciting.
So that leads us to the third segment. So at the moment, That's the trenches. So pretty much what we're doing right now. So in-house chat. So it's how we discussed pretty much season 1. That's pretty much what this segment will be based on. So how we had chats in regards to the Q&As. We had the top 3, the 5 W's, which was who, what, where, when, and why, and the do-it-yourselves. So that's pretty much, we're going to continue on with that as well. So we're not going to leave that behind if you guys are enjoying that. So that's still going to be there. We might have other people joining in with us, might not just be me and Leki, as we're growing our team, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
More about that down the track.
Yeah. So pretty much that's the 3 segments. So the hard slog, so looking at the local small business owners. The H.E.A.D.s, so health experts and disruptors. And then the third one is the trenches, so in-house chat.
Yeah.
So pretty much what we're doing right now.
And I think a lot of this for us is, this is just our ideas and thoughts, and personally what I would like to listen to. I would like to get an understanding of what people around me are doing, what they're getting up to. It's more of like a sticky beak. That's what the hard slog is. And then you've got the H.E.A.D, and you've got people, movers and shakers that are doing things within your industry. And so people that are health conscious, this would also pique your interest there. I think for me too is, personally, I feel that physio is kind of pigeonholed. Like there's a certain amount of thing that most people think that physios can do. And my belief is, physios can help you along the whole spectrum of health. I think there's an opportunity there for us. We just got to do a better job, basically. But in saying that, there's this misinformed idea that physios are in conflict to chiros and osteos and other health providers, and I would say personally not so much. We're basically all trying to help you, and I think it's just trying to understand how we help you is where the main point of difference is. And we're not here to bag anyone. We're happy and welcoming for any of our chiro friends, osteo friends to come and share their views, because they've gone to university, they've got further education, they've made an investment to help people by educating themselves. So we just want to hit some of those mistruths as well. Okay, and then the last one, the trenches. Always good to have an idea of what we're about, because we're here to help you guys out. So the trenches is a good opportunity to ask any questions, put your hand up if you've got any queries. And over the journey, we'd like to offer more things that will help you in your journey for well-being. Okay, so that's the format.
Yep.
It's season 2. We made it. Okay, we have a name, the Positive Experience Podcast or radio show. We'll just call it the Positive Experience at the minute. And then we've got our 3 segments, and it sits in a good place for me, and it sits in a good place
definitely.
for Harvey. It feels pretty comfortable. We feel light. It doesn't feel like it's heavy work. And as we announce, we've got like a hit list here. I won't share, the wish list, but we've got a hit list of people that we're going to be approaching. We're going to put the intention out there to get these guys in. We'll interview them, and like anything good, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, that's it. Still working on our sign-off, I suppose, but we'll come back with that one.
Yeah.
But until then, have a nice day and enjoy the rest of your year and smash all your goals.
Absolutely. Positive Experience. See you guys.
See ya.